Hey there, House of the Dragon fans, welcome back to the channel. Spoiler warning for everything you're about to hear, because House of the Dragon Season 3 just ended, and we need to talk about it. The final episode was similar to the first one, in that it featured a massive set-piece battle. The Battle of the Gullet changed everything we knew about this series' power dynamics, and those dynamics have shifted yet again after Tumbleton, with Rhaenyra going from a position of strength to a position of weakness in the span of 10 episodes. Aegon started this season in the back of a raven wagon, and now he arguably has a better position and claim than his half-sister, considering all the things she's done. If you were missing the highly conflicting loyalties you felt when watching Game of Thrones for the first time, House of the Dragon Season 3 managed to capture that feeling at the very least. And now the question is, what's next? What will happen in Season 4, which is also the final season of this series? Well, without further ado, let's dive right in. Rhaenyra completely disavows House Velaryon. What will happen to Aelin and Corlys? At the beginning of Season 3, Rhaenyra owed a lot of her war effort's success to House Velaryon, which not only bankrolled her but also blockaded the Gullet for her, gave her her successors and hand in an official capacity, provided her with dragon riders in the form of Baela, and was generally considered to be the pillar upon which her power rested. At its end, only one member holds her favor, and it isn't the guy who had it when the season began. When Rhaenyra refuses to give Aelin legitimacy, she does take him as Corlys' replacement, who would rather hunt Triarchy pirates than directly advise his queen. His nature has always been to dispense his duty before voicing his own opinions, and so when he's given a command, he obeys without question. But even we could feel the conflict within him when Rhaenyra commanded him to execute the High Septon within the Great Sept. She gives him some bull about being the blood of old Valeria and having different gods than the Seven, and Aelin, being the dutiful man he is, executes the queen's order. His brother does not like the path he's walking because he's seen how cruel Rhaenyra can be to those who lose her favor firsthand, and he also resents him a little for bagging Baela. But neither of the Velaryon boys know that their dad was not only kidnapped and held hostage by the enemy, but he was also branded a traitor by Daemon for suggesting her name Daeron Targaryen, Warden of the South. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, so stick around. But when it comes to the Velaryons, it's clear that Rhaenyra's had it with them. Rhaena got her son killed, so did Baela, who was insolent enough to mouth off to her queen. Corlys always challenged her instead of helping her, and Adam stuck up for Baela, which was a big mistake. Though Aelin obeys her orders, she might think, after hearing from Daemon, that Corlys tried to act as an emissary for Daeron, that he too has some secret plot against her. And the fact that Ulf and Hugh have turned their cloaks will lead her to the worst decision yet. Rhaenyra's final shot in Season 3 sees her looking down at Helena's body, impaled on the spikes of the moat surrounding Maegor's holdfast, and closing the shutters after watching what she'd finished sewing. It was a prophetic interpretation of their lives, and while Helena's ended with a fall, Rhaenyra is depicted as dying on the Iron Throne with her hands and her throat cut open, which is exactly how Maegor the Cruel was found when he died. The implication here isn't exactly subtle. Rhaenyra allegedly donned Visenya Targaryen's battle armor for her quote-unquote coronation this episode, so her being associated with the two worst Targaryens before her own generation makes sense. When she's told that Corlys wanted to divide her realm, which isn't accurate, and that Ulf has betrayed her, which is accurate, she's going to lock down every Velaryon she can get her hands on. Corlys has made his disdain for Rhaenyra evident this season. If she commands the capture of his sons after denying them legitimacy, we think that might be enough to make him take up the color green in earnest. Right now, he's going from one volatile situation to another, with Ormund Hightower as captive. But that won't be a good enough prize for the queen. The Sea Snake might find himself in a black cell, with his son soon enough. Or rather, son, because one of them at least might yet escape her wrath. Adam's flight to God's Eye. The one thing that Adam has that Aelin and Corlys don't is a dragon. And truth be told, he might already be thinking about taking wing, considering he and Baela have been right on the money about Rhaenyra's descent into madness. In the books, Corlys wasn't captured by the Greens, so he was in the front seat when Rhaenyra ordered Adam's capture based on Ulf and Hugh's betrayal. He had time enough to alert his son in the dragon pit, and Adam escaped, after which Corlys was imprisoned for treason. In the show, he's under suspicion of treason already because he essentially tweaked a proposal made by Alicent in the books that actually sounds smart to us. When Rhaenyra first took King's Landing, Alicent petitioned that Westeros be divided in two, with her ruling all the lands watered by and north of the Trident, including the Crown lands, and Aegon making Oldtown his new seat. The show gave his proposal to Daeron and Gwaine, and Corlys updated it by saying that Daeron should be made the new Lord of Oldtown, and Lord Paramount of the Reach instead. To seal the deal, he should be married to Rhaena, and then they can fight Aegon and Aemond together as a united front for House Targaryen. The Westerlands and Stormlands would be subdued easily with a Targaryen as Warden of the South, not a Tyrell, and Daeron's possession of Oldtown would dispossess the Hightowers permanently. A fair enough punishment for trying to steal the throne from Targaryens. But due to Daemon and Rhaenyra, any such suggestion is tantamount to treason. And while he might have gotten the rogue prince out of burning Tumbleton alive, Corlys is still Daemon's prisoner. He can't exactly rush to help his son out if he's in chains. So let's hope Adam does it by himself, because his story is where the supernatural elements of the series could reach their peak. We still need to see him fly to the God's Eye, and we still need to revisit Tumbleton, which we will considering how the battle ended. We'll expand on that in a few, because there's more at stake here than you realize. But the gist of it is this. When Rhaenyra orders House Velaryon's downfall, Adam escapes, and he goes to the one place where he thinks he might redeem himself. Both Aegon and Aemond were last spotted in or around Harrenhal. He might think that by ending their challenge, he'll prove his loyalty, or at least die in the attempt. But instead, he'll feel the same presence he felt when he was camping near Harrenhal with Ulf and Hugh at the beginning of the season. And this time, he'll need its guidance instead of resisting its eerie influence. Rogue dragons are extremely dangerous things, especially in hands suspected of treachery. But Adam of Hull will die a true Velaryon even if he doesn't get that name. The fact that the show doesn't legitimize them yet means they must be holding it off for something big, and we think we know what that is. If you've been with us so far, you know what the pattern is, and that you need to stick around until the end to find out what the big thing is. So now that we've addressed the Velaryon side of things, let's take a brief detour to King's Landing. Mysaria's misery. While the entire world was up in arms about Rhaenyra and Mysaria's sex scene from Season 3, Episode 7 because of how gullible it made the former look, the finale proved that she wasn't so ignorant after all. Rhaenyra takes her pleasure of Mysaria, she takes information from her, she takes validation from her, and then she packs her off to Pentos because she's always trusted her husband more. She doesn't go to Mysaria when she learns Aegon and Sunfire are still alive. She goes to Daemon. And the fact that she has Alinda Massey dismiss her before the Battle of Tumbleton is evidence she's been considering this for quite some time. Now, there's a slim chance that Rhaenyra's decision also had another motive. Pentos is where her sons Aegon and Viserys are supposed to be after all. So maybe after she learned that Rhaenyra had completely abandoned them, she wanted to punish Mysaria but also ensure her son's safety. We bring this up because we don't want this whole video to feel like a hit piece. There could have been a better reason behind Mysaria's dismissal than the one she was given. We won't deny it. But before Rhaenyra slept with her, she accused her of manipulating her, and it looks like the sex wasn't good enough to convince her otherwise. So she cats her out and doesn't even have the decency to see her off after everything. Mysaria began this season believing in her and the idea that she could be a good and merciful queen. She now knows that's a lie, and that Rhaenyra can become a tyrant. That shot where we see her in the crowd, listening to Rhaenyra's coronation speech where she rants about being queen was her prophesized fate and raves about ice demons, and such is Mysaria's Arya Stark moment. She's realizing, for the first time, that she is backed a murderous maniac, and now she'll do exactly what Varys did to Daenerys in Game of Thrones and betray her. We suspect we'll see Mysaria talking to Madame Sylvie sooner rather than later, but we don't think she'll get a lot of help from her. Sylvie is quite miffed with Mysaria as it is, and begging is no longer in the White Worm's nature. When she last spoke with Alicent, she was offered House Hightower's favor, and Gwaine is on his way to the capital. She could hide out, contact him, get back to her slimy ways. In fact, Mysaria could be the one who stokes the massive riot that ultimately causes Rhaenyra's downfall and the death of most dragons, because that's what happened shortly after Tumbleton. Or she could suffer a worse fate, because in the books, things do not end well for Mysaria. But that happens after Rhaenyra's fall, and she remains at court before meeting that fate. As much as she likes to think of herself as a woman of the people, Mysaria did just spend months supporting a tyrant, and her treatment of Sylvie makes her re-entry into civilian life extremely dangerous. There's a chance that she might be shamed before the right time. But one thing is for certain, Mysaria will know misery as she has never known next season, because all her wheeling and dealing, all her secrets have only earned her scorn and hate. The Hightowers offered her protection, but she also helped orchestrate their destruction, and these guys have long memories. Either way, she's going to have a painful end next season, but this season made it clear that it won't come at Rhaenyra's side or in support of a Targaryen regime. Mysaria dies the same way in which Cersei Lannister's confidence died, and it sucks to say this, but many will think of it as a deserved end. But speaking of deaths, did Ormund Hightower survive? One of the most satisfying things about the final episode was the burning of Ormund Hightower. To be honest, this guy carried Season 3 with his eloquent speech, his elaborate plots, and his eccentric hatred for fetid smells. Ormund made House of the Dragon feel like Game of Thrones' first 4 seasons because he was actually clever and manipulative in a way that impressed you. Throughout Season 3, we questioned why he took Tumbleton. Turns out, Daeron wasn't his only angle. He was working on getting Ulf on his side as well. He orchestrated the shadow war against Rhaenyra in King's Landing streets, as well as the kidnapping of her hand. Rhaenyra tries a clumsy plot to assassinate him and Daeron by sending her men to treat with them as Baratheon emissaries. But Ormund turns that around, and almost everything else as well, until his own words come back to bite him. At one point, he gave a lesson to his ward about the appetites of a striver, and why you should never trust them. Ormund thought he was smart enough to play one such man in Ulf, but he was proven wrong in the last episode, and that was satisfactory. We never really cared for Ulf the Sot, but we have to admit that seeing him burn Ormund with Silverwing for disrespecting him and kicking him after whining and dining him felt good. The man abused Daeron into submission and dissed everyone around himself, and he deserved to die. That's when you know a villain's done their job well, when you want them to die. But is Ormund actually dead? We can't be certain, because Aegon took Dragonfire to the face as well, and he survived. The last time we see Ormund, he's burned, sure, but his body parts aren't melting, and he seems catatonic rather than deceased. If he does survive, we don't think it'll be for too long. There are fan theories that suggest he's going to become the Shepherd, a figure that will be introduced in Season 4 as a faith fanatic who preaches against dragons. This makes some sense considering Ormund's hatred for Targaryens and their dragons, and how he keeps invoking the Hightower's close ties to the faith. But travel might be out of the question for him, considering he was just deep-fried, and besides, Rhaenyra executed the High Septon in Season 3, Episode 8. That alone is reason enough for any random begging brother to start preaching about her crimes against the faith, and the Shepherd works less as a character and more as an ideal. Ormund Hightower's survival is not clear right now, but if he does live, we have an idea as to what he might do, and that is Daeron, Ulf, Hugh, and the Caltrops. The final episode of Season 3 also left us with a bit of a cliffhanger, because we don't know what happened to Daeron Targaryen. The last we saw him, he was in the Sept of Tumbleton where Mysaria had been housed, and he was dressed for a flight and a fight. Gwaine was attempting to dissuade him, but they got separated after Ulf started burning the town, and Daeron isn't seen at all in the end of the season. So is he dead? Well, we doubt that, because Daeron still has a story to tell. His tale does end in death at Tumbleton, but not during the first battle. Season 4 will feature a second battle of Tumbleton after Adam of Hull fulfills his vision quest in the God's Eye, and we see the Green Men again. But we need something to hold our attention before that. This is where the four names we've just mentioned come into the picture, because if Daeron is still alive and still close to Tumbleton, he's in a very precarious position. As much as he hated Ormund, he also knew that Ormund would have protected him no matter the cost. Gwaine would have done the same, but his loyalty was true and he's no longer with him, having been dragged off to King's Landing. It's possible that the proposal made by Corlys about marrying Daeron to Rhaena could be taken up by Gwaine, because in the books, Rhaena does marry a Hightower after the Dance of the Dragons. In fact, that's another prediction we're making for Season 4. This becomes even more likely if Daeron is dead, but if he's alive, he has to now contend with the two betrayers, and his only possible backup is Ormund's lapdog, Jon Roxton. Ulf's actions in Episode 8 made it very clear that he's now on neither side. He's been whining about not getting what he deserves all season, and it looks like now he's just going to take it. We won't be surprised if he names himself Lord of Tumbleton next season, and if Hugh joins him. He arrived at Tumbleton without the Queen's leave looking for his wife, but he finds her dead, and he will most likely blame the Blacks for this as well. Hugh might not say it, but he shares Ulf's disdain for Rhaenyra and Daemon, and Ulf can play on that to get him on his side. The two betrayers will declare themselves independent of Rhaenyra, and Daeron will have to figure out how to stop them. In the books, Ulf and Hugh stay in line for a time because the Hightower army has a lot more lords than we've seen this season. Hobart Hightower, for instance, assumes command of the Hightower army after Ormund's death, and there are other powerful lords from the Reach that are a part of the retinue. Daeron's claim is supported by them, they retain a large army, and Ulf and Hugh play along until they don't. If Ormund does survive his burning in the show, we suspect he'll fulfill Hobart's role and form the Caltrops, a secret organization with a single goal: to burn out the betrayers. Ormund has more than enough reason to see the Sot dead. Jon Roxton is said to have been one of the Caltrops in the books. In fact, he's destined to fight Hugh next season, so keep an eye out for that. And Shadow Wars and Poisoned Ale sound like plans that Ormund Hightower would actually approve of. So while it's possible that Daeron flew off to meet his mom or surrender to his half-sister, or reunite with his brothers once he learns they're alive, we think it's more likely he's still in Tumbleton, and that his presence will create a new power struggle that will keep the Greens in the south occupied until Adam's arrival. As for the Greens in the north, Dragonstone and Harrenhal, Aegon and Aemond's next destinations. The scene between Aegon and Aemond, where Big Bro's little bro hard, is one of our favorites from the entire franchise. Aegon really said, "Bruh, you tried to kill me? You're a fool for that." And Aemond looks all sheepish and apologetic, like only a little brother can. But the fact that they have reconciled to an extent is an indicator as to what's next for the Greens, because Aegon's plan will die before it even takes life. After confronting and chastising Aemond, he tells them that they'll find Vhagar, fly to Tumbleton, sort out Daeron and Ormund, then march to King's Landing. Once they take care of Rhaenyra, he'll decide whether to leave Aemond alive for trying to kill him, and this is shocking, but Aegon's plan is actually sound here. He's not recklessly thinking about going to King's Landing. He's planning things out for once. And say what you will about him as a person, but that's growth. Shame that Tumbleton's been burned, Ormond's presumed dead, and Daeron's presumed fled. Alice Rivers is extremely on edge right now because just when she got rid of Aemond's mommy, his brother shows up. And Aegon is clearly not going to be easy to deal with. The way he shushes her when she tries to convince Aemond not to listen to him was chilling. And Tom Glyn Carney's performance as Aegon might be the best thing about Season 4, if this is how he keeps performing. It's possible that she sees Tumbleton before the brothers set out to find Vhagar, and if that's true, then their plans will have to change. Aegon might still help Aemond find Vhagar, though we doubt Alice will like that. It's more likely that she'll suggest Aegon take Dragonstone like Rhaenyra took King's Landing, and Aemond will convince him to do it because of his own guilt. When Aegon goes to Dragonstone, he should find it empty, considering all of Rhaenyra's soldiers and dragons are in King's Landing. But even if he finds resistance on the island, he's no longer afraid of meeting it intelligently and fearlessly. As for Aemond, we suspect Alice used some sort of magic to shoo Vhagar, so after she sends her brother off, she'll need to give him a bone to keep him at her breast. She'll probably help him find his dragon, but this will take time, during which Sabbatha Frey will occupy Harrenhal. If you don't remember, Rhaenyra told her to take Harrenhal and hold it until the end of the conflict in the last small council meeting we saw, and Sabbatha Frey departed at once. We suspect she'll be the one Aemond finds when he finally returns to Harrenhal, because he already knows that this is where he'll die. The Green Bros will put on one final show of shock and awe, blood and bone for the realm, and it doesn't matter to them whether they live or die. What matters is they prevail, and given their resoluteness, they just might. Every new player on the board. This will be relatively short, but if you thought that there couldn't possibly be any more new characters showing up at this stage of the war, then you need to think again. Now yes, technically these guys are already part of the conflict, but so far they haven't taken center stage. They will in Season 4, because after everything that's happened in Season 3, they're the only ones left with proper armies. If we take an account of all the major kingdoms that have been embroiled in the dance, then you'll notice the Riverlands, the Westerlands, and the Crownlands have been the worst affected. The Reach is divided because the Hightowers might support the Greens, but their overlords, the Tyrells, declared neutrality, and several other houses from the Reach supported the Blacks. We might see a Tyrell or two next season, considering their position within the realm, but that's not all. After Jason Lannister's death, rule of the Westerlands falls to his son, but his son is too young. His twin, Tyland, could rule in his stead, but Tyland is extremely loyal to Aegon's cause, and his absence from Harrenhal suggests that he's already doing something to support the king. Most likely, he's either finding a ship or contacting Casterly Rock to raise enough soldiers to help Aegon retake the throne. So he's out of the picture. In the books, this is what leads to Dalton Greyjoy invading the Westerlands, and the only person who responds to this invasion is Jason Lannister's wife. We might see both of them next season, because that particular conflict outlasts the dance, and is one of the first things that Rhaenyra and Aegon's successors need to deal with. Plus, if they do a full 8 episodes next season, they'll need things to pad it out with, and this is a great way to do that. So the Red Kraken and the Lioness of the West might be showing up next season, as will the Stormlord and the Wolflord. Boros Baratheon's army might be in the Red Mountains fighting the Vulture King right now, but eventually he'll have to honor the agreement he made with Aemond and Aegon, especially now that they're both resurgent. We would love it if his reintroduction came as he slew the Vulture King, because that'd be such a Baratheon moment. But Boros is integral to the final battles of the dance as well, thus making his inclusion critical. Aegon doesn't know about Helaena or his dead heir, so when he learns about that, he'll be furious once more. But he might also have some hope, not just because of his bastards, but because of Aemond and his quote-unquote betrothed. Aegon reconciling with Aemond means that if Aemond and Alice ever had a child, that kid can officially be the future of the Greens. And besides, Boros and Aemond had a marriage pact that Aegon might need to deal with when he returns to power on a wooden throne. So Boros and his daughters are down for appearances next season, and so is Cregan Stark. The last we heard of him, his army had crossed the neck, and that means they're all but in the thick of things. Cregan in particular is very important to the outcome of the war because where most seek to advance their own agendas, he seeks to dispense true justice in the name of the Iron Throne. We've seen him once briefly, but we'll see a lot more of him, and the Shepherd, and Aegon and Viserys as well next season, those two being the future of the Blacks after Prince Joffrey. We suspect one of the first things we'll get in Season 4 is an update on their location, and that itself has the potential to bring more new players into the picture if you know who Viserys ends up marrying in Fire and Blood. All this is to say that even though many people have died, many more are about to take their place, and all this will unravel in Season 4. Larys Strong will return in unexpected fashion. Alicent might go crazy when she hears about Helena's demise. Corlys will definitely be rethinking his life decisions, and Rhaenyra, Aegon, Aemond, and Daemon will show us why House Targaryen's words are fire and blood. but that comes 2 years later. For now, all we want is to know what you think will happen in Season 4, and what you think about our predictions. Let us know in the comments below, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe and have a great day.